we looking at first class passenger shoes? Are we looking at third class passenger shoes?
First class would have really refined, beautiful looking shoes quite often. I see shoes that are 100 years old, and I've never seen anything like it. I'm looking at this shoe here.
Yeah, what about this guy here?
I can see the heel looks very thick. It looks like it's a well-built shoe. They were like so destitute that they had some budget item that they made back then that I don't know about.
For those History X members that are joining us, talking about mysterious pairs of shoes scattered around the Titanic.
Special thanks to these History X members. They joined for just $2.99 and received access to this live discussion about Titanic's mysterious pairs of shoes.
Preston Soto joining us. Preston's got the Elegant Oxford YouTube channel. When I pulled this screenshot, you were almost at 270,000 subscribers.
Right. I'm grateful for every viewer and every subscriber. I'm kind of a shoe historian, and I've owned a couple of pairs from around the time of the Titanic. So seeing the shoes there is just interesting to me. This was definitely something I'm excited for.
Yeah, you're obviously the guy to talk to, and there's a few videos on History X about the pairs of shoes scattered around the Titanic. Everyone's got their theories about why they're there. I want your opinions on these different pairs of shoes scattered around the wreck. When you see this first pair of shoes, what opinions come to mind?
The first opinion I had was that I am not surprised at all that the shoes are still preserved and they're still down there. I work with leather all day, and people underestimate how durable tanned leather is. It's extremely durable. People used it as armor in ancient times. And I use a heat gun, I use fire, I use a bunch of stuff on shoes. And other than acid, I can't imagine there's anything that's liquid that could destroy a pair of shoes easily. And not just that, but in the early 1900s, shoes were made incredibly well. I mean, for example, I have a pair of shoes here that's a little older than those shoes around the Titanic, but they were made using 50 nails per shoe, incredible craftsmanship, stuff that I know would last 100 years, even underwater. They were built so well. I mean, they're Goodyear welted, for those who don't know, means they're sewn to the upper on a welt. They're incredibly durable. I mean, aside from just walking a lot and getting a hole through the leather sole, they're very, very durable. They're hard. They're tanks, and leather will survive. I mean, there might be some rot on there or something, but the leather's going to stay in place. It's going to be there. I would guess another 100 years. In fact, they have found shoes that are 5,000 years old, made from leather. They're like moccasin type. The leather's still there. It somehow made it for 5,000 years. That was my first thought about seeing those photos. I'm not surprised they're still there, but they're very durable.
All right, so then let's go back to this picture. And these shoes appear to be identical. You know, they appear to be like a low-rise boot.
An ankle boot, yeah.
An ankle boot, okay. Mm-hmm. And what else can an expert like you pick up from a picture like this?
I immediately can assume with great certainty that they're Goodyear welted or hand welted. Shoes in that time period were well made. They were mostly hand welted or Goodyear welted. So let's see, it's 1916 or 1918, right? Is that around the time?
No, the Titanic went down, I think it was April 14th, 1912.
Okay, even better. In 1912, craftsmen just had more pride, I suspect, from what I see now. They were probably hand welted. And I'm just looking at the heel stack, the shape of the shoe. This is a really well-made shoe. Definitely not something you'd find today in the United States anymore. There is one company that exists now that existed during the Titanic that started in the late 1800s, known as Alden. They're in Massachusetts. They started in 1886. So there are shoemakers still around from this period. If anyone was coming from England to the United States, they might have been wearing a company that existed around that time was John Law. They still exist today. So perhaps someone from the upper class could have been wearing a pair of John Laws. I don't know if these are John Law. I don't suspect they are, but it's good craftsmanship. I can tell just from the heel, from the shape of the shoe, the last. It looks like it'd be a very good shoe, in my opinion. Honestly, they look great.
If you look on the right-hand side of the shoe that's on the right in the picture, it looks like it's split down to the ankle. So would that have been a zipper back then?
No, I've not seen zippers really in shoes that old. What I think probably happened is since the uppers are stitched with like a normal stitch, sometimes double, sometimes triple, but usually a one or two, they could have deteriorated over time. And that seam,
The thread holding the seam together, it would have been stitched up the side of the ankle, and then the
Yeah.
thread would have dissolved.
and I know that because right above the heel, there's a rounded portion that goes up right above the heel and goes back to the back of the shoe. That's
Mhm.
like the leather heel counter, the stiffener. It's what they use to stiffen the heel portion of the shoe. And then usually there's another layer stitched on top, and that creates the shaft of the boot. And it looks like the exact pattern of what I see today. It's the shaft, and then there's like a V formation. That's the V I'm looking at right there. And it looks like it came undone. That, or there's heavy sand on top of the shaft that's pushed it in.
I never noticed that. Yeah, you're right. You can actually follow from the back of the heel, it curves down,
Right.
and then you go forward a little bit, and then it curves towards the instep.
Let me show you a shoe that has a similar design. This one's a little longer than what you'd normally see, but the heel stiffener, the hard counter it's called, and then there's this section, and then the V that goes here, and the
Mhm.
shaft will come up through here. That's kind of what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and I'm pulling that picture back up here, and yeah, it's almost identical to what you're talking about.
Here's an ankle boot. Probably kind of similar. You can see the design. I'm going to try to make it look like the picture.
I do this. Yeah, that's pretty damn close.
Yeah, so you can see that there is that. Sorry, it's backwards, so I'm having trouble. Here we go.
No,
Something like that.
you're doing great. And then
Yeah. So it's this part that came undone.
Mhm,
And this part kind of either lifted up or it's being crushed down like this by sand and dirt.
sure.
That's probably what's happening. I mean, it's just great work. The heel looks incredible. You don't see work like that on new shoes today.
Do you have any knowledge as to what that would have cost somebody back then?
I've seen catalogs from around that time, $12.90. Whether
Okay.
that's indicative of a high end or low end, I'm not sure at all because of inflation.
Gotcha.
But $12, I don't know what that is by today's standards, but they were more affordable than what it would cost you now. Now it's so rare to see work that high end. You're going to be paying a lot of money for a shoe that well made. You'd have to go to a bespoke shoemaker or a company like John Lobb. They still exist since that time, and they make shoes at that level, but they're thousands of dollars. The art's being lost. I've made videos about this, but shoemaking, especially in the United States, is virtually, I mean, there's still good shoes, but the high-end stuff is gone forever, never coming back as far as I know.
When Robert Ballard discovered the wreck of the Titanic in 1984, this pair of shoes was something that he actually put in the press release as, you know, part of the debris field, signs of the passengers, that type of thing. So this is actually the very first picture of shoes being, you know, released to the public. Unlike the first set of shoes we talked about that had better resolution, it was a better photo. I actually see two different kinds of shoes.
Let me look at them carefully. I think my first impression is that it looks like someone had them on their feet. It looks like how a body would land on their back. I'm looking at the heels. I can tell they're both boots from what I'm looking at. There's a shaft being hidden by some dirt. I would say just how close they are and the fact that one looks like a right shoe and one looks like a left shoe. I would say they're probably the same shoe, but depending on where they've been or what's on top of them, they could deform. I've seen shoes that deform like you would not believe, especially if they were on someone's feet.
When you look at them, your first inclination is to say, no, yeah, they are the same kind of shoe. Preston has not been, you haven't been down there, have you?
No, no way.
No.
Not after the last disaster. Just no way I'd ever get in one of those.
No, Preston has not been down there, but I've invited him on because, I mean, this guy works with shoes. He knows leather, and he's obviously going to have some opinions, and I want to hear what they are. So you think they could be the same kind of shoe, and just like you said, deformed or part of it deteriorated. Like you said, in the other pair of shoes, maybe some stitching has caused it to collapse.
Yeah.
Look a little different.
look a little different. I find it unlikely that two different shoes would end up that near each other that don't belong to each other. But then I can tell that they both have heels at the very least. I assume they're both high-end, Goodyear welted by today's standards. So I'm not surprised they're both still around. Leather is surprisingly durable. I think that's what most people should realize, is that if it's tanned in a good factory, it'll withstand anything, I would say, except for like acid or being burned for like an hour or something. They're very durable shoes.
Okay, so let me ask you about that. So when you say if they're tanned leather, that means tannic acid, right?
Right. There's different ways of tanning leather. If it's just regular skin that hasn't been tanned, it'll deteriorate pretty quick. But actually tanned shoes, depending on the method, there's different tanning methods, which is I mean, it's not surprising. I see shoes that are 100 years old quite often, and I mean, they're still around. I mean, the leather is surprisingly durable. The only real weakness is it drying out and cracking. But underwater, that's not a problem. So I'm not surprised at all by what I'm seeing.
For the History X members, we're talking to Preston Soto from the elegantoxford.com.
The elegantoxford.com is where I sell Saphir, which is the shoe care products that I endorse and I think are the best. I'm also on Amazon. So if you buy Saphir from Amazon, you'll probably get it from me as well. My main interest is, of course, the YouTube channel. So I'm on YouTube, on Instagram. I'll be in New York on October 5th at the New York Super Trunk Show, and I'll be a judge for the United States Shoe Shine Championship.
It's fascinating stuff that I think History X subscribers, if they're not familiar with your channel, they will be, because I'm sure they're going to get hooked like I was. Can I hit you with a couple more Titanic pictures?
Let's look at them. Yeah.
Take a look at this picture. I at least see 3 shoes here, one in the background, but then there's another view of the 2 shoes. Here's a close-up. Now, obviously, I think these are 2 different size shoes.
They definitely look different shoes to me.
All right, just put that aside. So maybe this particular pair of shoes could have easily come from luggage. You see a hair clip to the right-hand side, but as a shoe expert, what are you seeing in this picture?
On the right hand, I see a shoe that I can't tell if it was a boot and the shaft fell off, because I'm seeing that pattern. I've also seen these on boots. It's a pattern where the tongue comes up and then it goes down in a U shape or a J shape to the back of the heel, and then they attach the shaft right there with stitching. That's also a possibility, but
so going back to what you were saying a little while ago, this actually could be a boot where the thread, the stitching dissolved away.
Yeah, and the threading could go. It's very thin. I mean, if you see shoes, for example, this is single stitched. It's just one little stitch. I mean, it's tough, obviously, but 100 years underwater, this might go.
Right.
The stitching on the edge and this is a lot harder to get rid of. It's very tight. But this, just a single row of stitching, that for sure could come undone.
And what was interesting about that shoe you held up there is like there was a little bit of a metal tip to it as well.
Yeah,
and
these are toe plates. They're flush fitting. Obviously, they don't stick out, but they're good for preventing wear when you walk.
Is that something that would have existed 100 years ago?
Yes, not in the front of the shoe, but in the back. This is called a V-cleat, also known as the suicide heel, because you can take I've taken a terrible fall in one of these. And this prevented the heel from wearing down as quickly. But yeah, that is, they had the fisheye, which was a circular version. They had whole sections that were the back part was just metal. But if animals were picking at bones and legs, they could have picked off the shaft of a boot pretty easily if they're going really hard, or if over 100 years. That's also a possibility of how a shaft came off a boot. If there's a leg inside of it and stuff's trying to get to it, eventually it could just loosen that thread and the shaft could go. I would love to get one of these shoes and bring them up to the surface, but.
And then there was another image here that I have to believe, when I see this, that to me looks like a rubber boot front and center, and then back behind it could be something totally different.
I see a loafer on the back. I can see the tongue. There's like a little tongue at the front of the shoe with like a little tan line. That looks like that might be a loafer. If I had to guess, it looks like a loafer to me, or it could be another type of boot. It could be a loafer. But yeah, the white one in the forefront really does look like a rubber boot of some kind.
Did they have stuff like that back then?
Not to my knowledge, but how wide the shaft is going up, it looks like a rain boot or like a boot a worker would wear, like a work boot of some kind. But I don't know if they had like plastic rubber boots at that. But that one's really well preserved. Everything looks really great. Heel, the sole, it's a thick. It looks like a triple oak sole. That thing looks thick and strong.
Let's go back to these shoes real quick. Are we looking at first class passenger shoes? Are we looking at third class passenger shoes?
I think the differences between first and third class would be in aesthetics. Like, it's just an ugly black boot you wear to work, whereas first class would have really refined, beautiful looking. But construction wise, they were probably both Goodyear welted or hand welted, both used great materials. They didn't really skimp out on anything back in the day like they do now. So I would assume they're all made the same. It's just like, who made them? Oh, this guy that mass produces shoes, or John Lobb, who makes them really refined, the beautiful looking, aesthetically nice. I don't know if there'd be a real difference. I've never found an old shoe that was bad quality. All the shoes that I find from the 1920s, they're incredible.
What you're getting at there is whether it's a first class passenger shoe or a third class passenger shoe, the stitching would have probably been the same material. The
Yeah.
boot would have held together, whereas a third class passenger or a crew member shoe might have just been a plain black shoe. It would have been on the decorative items, but yet the components holding it all together and what it's made of would have been the same.
Yes, they were well built. People took a lot of pride in the craft in those days. Even a lowly, like, third class boot would have been made well. I'm looking at this shoe here. I can see the heel looks very thick, very smooth, probably a full leather heel stack. Now they use particle board. Now they use components like a lot of rubber. But in the old days, it was a full leather heel stack, which is a bunch of leather, and then it's contoured a little bit. And I could see a contour because the top lift of the heel compared to the top, it looks like it's flaring out a bit. It looks like it's a well-built shoe. From what I see in the boots, the heels are a little higher than the men wear now. Now, the dress shoes I see have a pretty low heel. Some of the shoes I see from back in the day, the heel was really a little taller, and the shoe looked, I don't want to say more feminine, but like more contoured. The shoe here looks like there's a full leather heel stack from what I can tell. At least that's what I'm assuming. But what's interesting? All the soles are black that I'm seeing. And here's what happens. Here's a leather sole. When you walk on a leather sole around a lot and then it gets wet, it turns black. I don't know if you can see that. I walked in water the other day, and this used to be tan, like a leather color, and it turned black and gray on me. So it could be that all that leather is just so soaked and so like oversaturated. It's just, and it's underwater. It just looks black.
To see more analysis of the shipwreck of the Titanic, check out this video.